At the edge of the Arctic, raising pigs means fighting a battle that never completely stops. Outside, the cold controls everything.
But only a few meters inside, the world changes completely.
The animals must remain comfortable even when winter temperatures outside fall far below freezing.
And the first thing every animal needs is something surprisingly difficult to guarantee in extreme cold: water.
In this climate, even a simple water pipe becomes part of the survival system. Every hour, the farm quietly monitors the conditions, and the animals cannot control themselves. Temperature is only one number, but it can determine how every system inside the farm must operate. The barn cannot simply be sealed shut to keep the heat inside. The animals create heat, moisture, and gases, so fresh air must constantly enter the building. The challenge is finding the narrow balance between keeping the animals warm and keeping the air healthy. A few degrees can change how the entire ventilation system responds. Technology helps, but people still have to walk through the barn and see what the sensors cannot.
A healthy animal tells its story through small changes in behavior.
But keeping the animals warm is only half the problem. The pigs still need to eat, no matter what the weather decides. Every delivery must cross the same winter landscape.
The farm cannot wait for perfect weather.
Inside the silo, every delivery becomes part of a carefully managed reserve. In a remote farm, inventory is not just accounting, it is protection against the next storm.
And as daylight disappears, another challenge begins.
The farm has to create a stable rhythm, even when nature provides very little daylight. Lighting becomes another tool for maintaining a predictable daily routine. By night, the temperature outside can fall rapidly.
This is when routine becomes critical.
The farm manager is constantly checking the things that could quietly become problems. Because in the Arctic, a backup system is not decoration. It is there for the moment when the normal system stops.
Tonight, everything is still working.
But the real test of an Arctic farm begins when something goes wrong. And tonight, one small warning changes the entire routine. The temperature is still safe, but one ventilation system is beginning to struggle. A modern barn depends on several systems working together. First response is not panic, it is procedure.
In a harsh climate, maintenance is part of animal welfare.
A small mechanical part can affect the air quality of an entire building. Cold outside air meets warm, humid air, creating another problem farmers must constantly control.
Too much humidity can make a cold environment feel even colder.
The goal is not to make the barn feel warm to humans. It is to create the right environment for the animals.
Water must remain available even when the outside world is freezing. The solution begins before the water ever reaches the animals.
The farm watches temperature, pressure, and flow because a frozen water system can stop an entire operation.
But there is one group that needs even more protection from cold: newborn piglets.
Their small bodies lose heat much faster than the adults. That is why the smallest animals receive the closest attention. The animals themselves often show farmers whether the environment is comfortable.
For Eric, these small movements can matter more than any number on a screen. Even something as simple as drinking has to be reliable.
In a modern farm, keeping animals healthy also means controlling what enters their environment. Biosecurity becomes even more important when animals are kept in a closed environment. The invisible enemies are harder to see than snow and ice.
Air quality must be controlled without losing too much heat.
This is where the invisible engineering becomes visible. Every feeding cycle is calculated to deliver the right amount without wasting valuable feed.
Even the feed system has to survive the same winter as the animals.
And outside, winter is still getting stronger.
The forecast says the worst weather is still ahead. For the farm team, preparation begins before the storm arrives. Because the most dangerous part of winter is not always the cold. Sometimes the real danger is what happens when the systems that fight the cold begin to fail. At midnight, the storm outside reaches its strongest point. Then, for less than a second, the power flickers.
For a moment, the farm goes dark.
Backup systems are designed to react before the animals ever notice the problem.
Now the routine changes into an emergency procedure. The backup generator starts automatically.
For the next few minutes, this machine becomes one of the most important pieces of equipment on the farm. Outside, the only visible sign is a plume of warm exhaust disappearing into the storm.
Inside, the air begins moving again.
Water returns before the animals even understand that anything happened.
The generator is only the first step. Every critical system has to be checked. The emergency checklist is deliberately simple. Keep the animals safe, then find the cause. The most important indicator is still the animals themselves. When the pigs return to normal behavior, the team knows the environment is stabilizing.
But the nursery gets an even closer inspection.
The smallest animals have the least room for error. The temperature is checked twice, by the sensor and by the person standing beside it.
Good animal care means noticing changes before they become problems.
The team now has to make sure the backup system can continue running if the storm lasts all night. Fuel becomes another calculation when roads may remain blocked for hours. Outside, no delivery truck could safely reach the farm right now. That is why the farm keeps reserves. The reserve buys time when the roads cannot. Stored feed has to remain dry, clean, and usable until the next delivery arrives.
The storm forecast has changed again.
The question is no longer whether the storm will pass quickly. It is whether the farm can remain independent long enough for normal conditions to return.
For the animals, the crisis is already becoming invisible. Two worlds are separated by a wall only a few centimeters thick. The farm has survived the first emergency. But the storm is not over, and dawn is still hours away. At 3 in the morning, the farm has survived the first failure. Now comes the harder part, keeping everything stable until daylight.
The temperature is holding steady.
Most of the animals have no idea how much work is happening around them. That is exactly what a good emergency system is supposed to achieve.
Water pressure must remain stable because the animals cannot wait for the storm to end. A few meters of protected pipe separate flowing water from frozen equipment outside.
Cold is still trying to reach the system from every direction.
Even during an emergency, the feeding cycle continues. For the animals, another meal is simply another meal. For the workers, every normal sound is proof that another system is still alive. By 4 in the morning, the emergency becomes a test of endurance.
Every reading is recorded because memory is not enough during a long night.
The storm is finally beginning to weaken.
For the first time in hours, the wind begins to lose its grip.
Then, slowly, the Arctic morning arrives.
Inside, the farm begins returning to normal.
The first morning check is simple. Are the animals behaving normally?
The piglets made it through the night too.
For the smallest animals, normal behavior is the best sign of a successful night. The farm survived the storm without allowing the emergency to become an animal welfare crisis. But surviving the storm does not mean the work is finished.
The road must open before the next supply problem begins.
The first delivery after the storm is already waiting.
The supply chain starts moving again.
One delivery restores the reserve that protected the animals during the storm.
In the Arctic, food security begins with keeping the storage system full.
The failed component is now on a workbench, waiting to be replaced.
This is the less glamorous side of Arctic farming: maintenance before the next failure. A remote farm cannot depend on a replacement part arriving tomorrow. The storm has passed, the animals are safe, the systems are running, but there is one question left.
The storm is gone. Now the numbers begin.
Keeping animals alive in extreme weather has a cost that never appears in the final photograph. Energy, feed, fuel, transport, and maintenance all become part of the cost of production.
The colder the environment becomes, the more carefully every unit of energy must be managed.
Heat is not simply produced. It has to be controlled, distributed, and protected from being lost. Even fuel becomes part of the winter strategy when supply routes are long. Every machine has a second job in winter: keeping the farm accessible.
Animal health cannot be postponed because the weather is bad.
The hardest environments demand even more disciplined routines.
Good farming is often invisible work: hygiene, monitoring, cleaning, and prevention.
From a distance, the farm looks small against the Arctic landscape. But inside those buildings is an entire food production system. Feed arrives, water flows, animals grow, workers monitor, and every system depends on the next. The technology is impressive, but its purpose is simple: deliver the basics reliably. At the center of all this technology are still living animals. And the success of the system is ultimately measured by their health and welfare.
But the next delivery will still have to make the same journey.
Because in the Arctic, food production depends on logistics almost as much as livestock.
One blocked road can affect an entire chain of operations. And that raises a much bigger question. How independent can a remote food system really be? A farm can store feed, fuel, and spare parts. But no reserve lasts forever. The goal is not to eliminate risk. It is to buy enough time to manage it. Between storms, the farm returns to the quiet work that keeps the entire system healthy.
Cleaning is not glamorous, but it is one of the systems that protects the animals every day.
For Eric, the lesson from the storm is simple. Preparation matters more than prediction. You cannot control the Arctic. You can only prepare for what it might do next. And tomorrow, the same battle begins again. The animals are warm, the water is flowing, the feed is stored. Another Arctic night begins. But keeping the pigs alive is only one part of the story. The bigger challenge is keeping food moving through a place where winter can close the world outside. The farm survived the storm. But where does the feed come from when the road disappears completely?